Welcome to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill on 710 WOR.
Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Hill, your host, right here on 710 WOR Radio every Sunday in New York City, 8 o'clock. With me is my producer, Anthony Filippio, affectionately referred to, of course, as Flipsy.
You're the only one that calls me that, you know that, right?
Flipsy?
Yeah.
Well, I like to be original, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like to come up with some original material.
I like today's vest.
Today's vest. Very good. So we'll get into that in a minute. So
is there like a specific store you go to just get these vests, or is it?
There is a store that I...
There is? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
There is. Yeah, absolutely. There is a place in the city that I enjoy, but, it's.
I don't want the secret to get out, so you don't have to tell anyone.
Okay.
I don't want to, I don't want people going there to buy those vests.
I noticed that your vest is quite lovely.
Different hoodie.
What is that?
Yeah.
What is that?
I have no idea.
The rose?
I have no idea.
A rose by any other name?
It's just a nice hoodie.
Yeah, and it matches the Knicks.
Try to broaden my
your horizons,
hoodie collections.
Your leisure horizons. And I noticed that the Knicks hat with the orange looks
matches.
nice.
That's the whole point.
Yes, I understand that. I noticed you're not wearing the Yankees.
No.
No? Okay, then. So let's move on. Let's tell the folks how they can find us, shall we?
Go right ahead.
All right. We're available, as I said, right here every Sunday at 8 a.m. on 710 WOR Radio. Then the show becomes available as a podcast on the iHeartRadio and iTunes. Just search NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill. The show is also on Instagram and on Twitter and Facebook. And most important is that we're shooting the show live so you can see. The whole purpose of this was to see the hoodies that Flipsy gives us every week. And apparently my vests are becoming quite well known. All right, the team is led by Devin. He would be considered the foreman of the video energy here. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, you can find us on YouTube every Sunday at 10 a.m. All right, let's discuss the 4 segments of the show. Our first segment is called Cannabis in the Tri-State +1, where I will update you on the key cannabis issues in all 4 states, the 4th state being Massachusetts. Our second segment is called Stunning and Amazing Facts, what I consider to be the most relevant issues and opportunities in the space since last week. Each individual fact is called a...
Stunner, I believe.
That is correct. Look at that. We are so orchestrated now because for the first several shows when I pointed at Flips, he had no idea. Now he stunners it up right on time. Well done, Flipsy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our third segment is called Today's Guest. It's my honor today to introduce Jimmy Cozier, 3-time Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter who has written songs for Mary J. Blige, Janet Jackson, Sinead O'Connor, and many, many more. Jimmy himself is also a great performer and does a number of dates every single year. He has a lot to say about the space, how it's affecting the music industry, and he's got some fascinating thoughts about making money in the music industry. I suggest you stick around for that. Lastly, we will end the show with our 4th segment called Your Messages, providing answers to the most interesting direct messages we received following last week's show. Last week, you may recall, we had A.J. Vanderchuck on our air, and he talked about 25 NFL players that he's representing and their relationship with cannabis. As a direct result of that interview, we only got to 1 letter, so today we're going to fill you in on a couple of them. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we will go to Cannabis in the Tri-State plus Massachusetts, indeed, right after this.
The Alchemist Kitchen celebrates the power of plants. They're the leading destination in New York City for CBD. Their organic CBD hemp flower is grown in upstate New York. So come on down and talk to one of their herbalists to learn about how CBD may relieve stress, anxiety, and pain. Located at 21 East 1st Street, right near the Bowery. Mention NYCBD for special savings for your first purchase. See you soon. Or visit them online at thealchemistkitchen.com. That's the ALCHEMIST kitchen.com.
Welcome back to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill right here on 710 WOR Radio every Sunday at 8 a.m. As we all know, the show then turns into a podcast on iHeartRadio and iTunes, and it's on every social media known to man these days. Flipsy, tell the audience about Spotify. This is a breakthrough.
It's up now.
It's up now. Look at that. Isn't that exciting? 3 weeks he promised it, and on the 4th week, let there be light. And so it came. Okay, let's move on with our first segment, Cannabis in the Tri-State +1. You all know him from Massachusetts, and the dad, of course. I'm sure he's listening right now. So, Dad, hope you're doing well. All right, he comes from Massachusetts. Let's begin with New York. Cannabis vape products tested by the New York State Health Department contained high levels of vitamin E acetate, a compound that has been linked to vape-related pulmonary illnesses and deaths. The agency did not say if the compound was found in products available via state-licensed dispensaries. Vitamin E acetate is not an approved additive for medical cannabis vape products. Health Commissioner Dr. Howard Zucker said, "We urge the public to be vigilant about any vaping product that they or any family member may be using, and to immediately contact their healthcare provider if they develop any unusual symptoms. In general, vaping of unknown substances is dangerous, and we continue to explore all options to combat this public health issue," he said. All right. At least one vitamin E acetate containing product has been linked to each patient who fell ill and submitted a product for testing. Many of the affected products are believed to be the counterfeits based on products from illegal locations. As of Thursday, the health department had received 34 reports from around the state about the pulmonary illness with patients ranging from people 15 to 46 years old, and the investigation is ongoing. All right, let's talk about this. As I've said so many times on this show, if you buy products in other categories that have been reported to be questionable or cheap or knockoffs that are making people ill, what happens? They come off the shelves, right? Even Tylenol, made by J&J, one of the great products in the marketplace, right, had an issue, and they recalled it, all right? Did they recall everybody else in the analgesic category? Of course they didn't, all right? So in this case, the government and the states who have allowed this to take place ought to be responsible for going out and looking for vitamin E acetate. And if the product has got it in there, it should be taken immediately off the shelves. It shouldn't be that hard. It's certainly not hard in every other category. All right. So those people that are responsible for putting it on the shelves should be forced to take it off, as Tylenol was asked to withdraw. And I don't mean to pick on Tylenol, because that's not the point here. The point is to use an example that the audience understands, and that's the example I've chosen. All right, let's move on. An industrial hemp seed bank is under construction at Cornell University in Geneva, New York. Well, there you go. Construction has begun at the nation's only industrial hemp seed bank, funded in part with a $500,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Recall that hemp seed and hemp becomes CBD and other cannabinoids, right, but non-THC product, i.e. 0.3% less or less THC allows for CBD. And who's studying it? Well, the repository at Cornell University in Geneva is studying it, and they're doing the first hemp seed bank in the U.S. since hemp was added to the Controlled Substance Act when? In 1938. And when did it come off? In December of 2018. Oh, just a simple, 80-year period where many kids could have been impacted. That
took long enough.
It sure did, right? So epileptics, autistics, PTSD, and on and on and on, that we all know can be addressed by this product, right, was illegal for 80 years. All right. The funding for the hemp seed bank was secured by U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer, of course, Democrat from New York, who said the repository would help breeders and geneticists develop new cultivars, that means strains or varieties, and identify hemp genes for improved pest and disease resistance.
At least you did one thing right.
There you go. How'd it go, Mr. Schumer? He was one of the sponsors of the 2018 Farm Bill also, which, as I said a moment ago, removed hemp from the Controlled Substance Act in December of 18. So let's call it two things right. Schumer suggested that the seed bank and the hemp industry would help boost the upstate of New York's economy. And Catherine J. Bohr, the dean of Cornell's College of Ag and Life Sciences, said the seed bank and the research that it will follow allows Cornell and the USDA scientists to do some vital research work and become a resource for New York State farmers. Fascinating. All right, let's move on. There's been nothing new in Connecticut and New Jersey.
I feel like there's nothing new in Jersey every week.
I was just going to say that. New Jersey is setting a record. The over and under in New Jersey is 3 more weeks with nothing happening. All right, so let's move on to the Commonwealth state of Massachusetts. Governor Baker's ban on vaping sales is expected to survive the first legal challenge in the U.S. in district court in Boston. His 4-month ban on all vaping products, the conversation we had a moment ago, was expected to survive its first major legal challenge after a federal judge in Boston seemed cool to arguments seeking a temporary halt to the product. In seeking the restraining order, attorneys for several local vape companies and a national vaping trade association said businesses face irreparable damage. The ban has forced them to stop selling the majority of their inventory to in-state customers. They said it is nearly impossible to stay afloat. Of course, Baker said, hey, you can ship it outside the state. That's all right. Well, a vape store in New York that's selling medicinal product or non-medicinal product, right, probably doesn't do a lot of business, let's say in Vermont. Joseph Terry, who represents the Vape Technology Association, said the ban is exacting a toll on small businesses. It's just not a matter of we can make it up next week, Terry said of the companies. It is the end of the small business person in this space. And he said much medicinal product is being delivered through the vape, and that hurts that business as well. All right, Governor Baker has stood by this ban, which is in effect until January 25th. And could be extended. He said last week that it is necessary to allow health professionals to figure out exactly what is making people sick. Well, I completely agree. So there's a conundrum here, ladies and gentlemen, right? We need to figure out what's making people sick. There seems like we understand it. All right, so let's further investigate. Let's identify it. Let's isolate it and let it get it off our shelves. All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking cannabis news in the Tri-State Plus One. We'll be back for our second segment, Stunning and Amazing Facts, right after this.
The Alchemist Kitchen celebrates the power of plants. They're the leading destination in New York City for CBD. Their organic CBD hemp flower is grown in upstate New York. So come on down and talk to one of their herbalists to learn about how CBD may relieve stress, anxiety, and pain. Located at 21 East 1st Street, right near the Bowery. Mention NYCBD for special savings for your first purchase. See you soon. Or visit them online at thealchemistkitchen.com. That's the ALCHEMIST kitchen.com.
Welcome back to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill, right here on 710 WOR Radio, 8 a.m. every Sunday morning. After the show airs, it becomes a podcast on iHeartRadio and iTunes. We're also available on virtually all forms of social media at NYCBD Official. So if you're a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube user, just enter NYCBD Official and enjoy the show. All right, let's move on with Stunners. Mitch Mcconnell has a private lunch meeting with the marijuana industry. Oh, there you go. The distance between Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, and the marijuana industry seems to be narrowing, albeit gradually. Weeks after the House passed a bill to protect banks that service cannabis business from being penalized by federal regulators, McConnell held several private meetings with marijuana, hemp, and CBD stakeholders over the course of a 2-day trip to Southern California, where he also toured at least one cannabis business.
I have a question.
What's that, my friend?
They're going to be eating at a cannabis-friendly restaurant.
I'm going to guess that Mitch will not be in a cannabis-friendly restaurant, but when he goes back to the hotel, I won't tell you what he'll be doing. All right, while the 90-minute gathering of about 20 people held at the Newport Beach Country Club, there you go, maybe that's a cannabis-friendly restaurant, wasn't solely focused on marijuana, issues surrounding the plant were a key area of discussion. The attendee, who did not wish to be named, what a surprise, in order to candidly discuss the event, said that McConnell mostly listened as other speakers spoke about challenges experienced by marijuana, hemp, and CBD businesses under current federal law. We put our best face forward, the attendee said, adding that we were strategic by not forcing him into a corner or by pressing him with pointed questions.
Sounds like a big pitch meeting.
Yeah, perhaps. McConnell, in turn, made no legislative commitments, but noted that cannabis is a complicated issue. That's a classic political phrase, and in particular made clear he understands the industry's problems with banking access. That the luncheon and other meetings even took place is significant, given the majority leader's long-standing opposition to marijuana reform. While he's been a champion of hemp legalization, he's taken pains to distinguish the crop from what he's described as its illicit cousin, marijuana. Quote, "These are two entirely separate plants," McConnell said when asked about loosening federal marijuana laws last year. Quote, "There's a lot of confusion about what hemp is. It has an illicit cousin, which I choose not to embrace," McConnell said. If you have been listening to my show, you've heard us quote BDS Analytics data, which suggests 52% of people who are aware of CBD, in fact, don't understand the difference between CBD, non-psychoactive, and THC, which is psychoactive. All right, that's an issue, right? But remember that Mitch was completely pro, right, the 2018 Farm Bill, and he's pushing aggressively to get hemp legalization because Kentucky's the #1 hemp state. So he found his way to wrap his mind around that. I found that fascinating, all right? It's likely that the House passage of the cannabis banking bill, which has only been passed by the House, has put added pressure on McConnell because it has to come in front of the Senate. The question is he willing to put it up for a vote? Some say he's not going to do it, right? Cannabis industry representatives, including the hemp farmers, made up about a third of attendees at the fundraising lunch, while other seats were taken by Orange County Republican donors. Once again, a big surprise. Besides marijuana, other issues discussed included impeachment proceedings. I bet that wasn't a short topic. Turkey. I bet that one lasted a while. And the role of the Senate in confirming judicial nominees. I guess Mr. McConnell's priorities are getting clearer by the minute. All right, stunner next. Former FDA head floats federal marijuana regulation compromise. What do I mean by that? Ex-FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb proposes changing the scheduling status of marijuana under federal law as a compromise to provide limited regulations and promote research. In an op-ed published in the Wall Street Journal, Gottlieb said the recent spike in vaping-related lung injuries involving contaminated THC cartridges demonstrates the need for federal regulations. I think we all agree. While he expressed frustration over the federal government's decade-long refusal to challenge state law legalizing pot, he also recognized that enforcing prohibition in legal states isn't politically practical and floated a feasible compromise that would require Congress to take marijuana out of the existing paradigm for drug scheduling, especially if Congress wants to allow carefully regulated access for uses that fall outside FDA-approved drug indications. That language leaves room for interpretation, but he goes on to say that the, quote, ship has sailed on legalization for recreational use, close quote, and that, quote, regulation of the potency of THC compounds, the forms they take, how they're manufactured, who can take purchases, et cetera, ought to be possible, close quote. So that's interesting, right? Ex-FDA head has a suggested compromise. The compromise says let's let the FDA regulate certain issues and allow the states to continue moving forward. That seems reasonable. Let's try to get this done. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's a few of the stunning and amazing facts that we selected to be the most relevant issues in the space since last week. When we come back, we'll move on to the next segment of our show. Our guest, Jimmy Cozier, 3-time Grammy-nominated singer and pretty darn good guy as well. You won't want to miss that. He'll be here right after this.
The Alchemist Kitchen celebrates the power of plants. They're the leading destination in New York City for CBD. Their organic CBD hemp flower is grown in upstate New York. So come on down and talk to one of their herbalists to learn about how CBD may relieve stress, anxiety, and pain. Located at 21 East 1st Street, right near the Bowery. Mention NYCBD for special savings for your first purchase. See you soon. Or visit them online at thealchemistkitchen.com. That's the ALCHEMIST kitchen.com.
Welcome back to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill, right here on 710 WOR Radio. After airing every Sunday at 8 a.m., the show moves as a podcast to iHeartRadio and iTunes. We're also on all social sites, including YouTube at NYCBD Official. Let's move on to the third segment of our show. Today's guest. It is my pleasure to introduce Jimmy Cozier. Of course, I pronounce Jimmy Cozier because I don't do the French thing very well, and I'm not exactly sure that I can pronounce it properly, so I'm just going to go with Cozier. He's an American R&B singer and songwriter, best known for his hit single, She's All I Got.
Sometimes I love her, sometimes I love her now. I ain't letting her go.
All right, right, ladies and gentlemen, you weren't expecting that on this show, were you? Well, that's what this is all about. He's also one of the inaugural artists signed to Clive Davis' J Records label. He started out as a singer and songwriter for artists such as Maya, Sinead O'Connor, and Janet Jackson, and collaborated with Shaggy, who's making an amazing recovery, of course, Red Fox, and many others on his compilation albums. His debut single, which you just heard, She's All I Got, was released in 2001 and rose to number 4. Yeah, it makes you an old man, my friend.
Oh, man.
Number 4 on the R&B chart. He created his own label called Cozy Music, C-O-Z-I. I got that pronounced properly, I think, Inc.
Yep.
And is now representing artists and doing many other exciting things behind the scenes, along with writing, count 'em, 200 songs a year. Welcome to the show, Jimmy. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
All right, we're very excited. Listen to that, ladies and gentlemen. We got the deepest kind of guttural thing we've had on this show.
The deepest.
All right. This is the only time we've actually had a real entertainer on the show.
Right.
Of course, I've tried my best to try to entertain.
We have Cannabis Love Radio.
But, Jesus. All right. Okay, the audience wasn't expecting that, James.
Right.
Very well done, I say. Does anybody call you James besides me?
You know, a lot of people call me James.
Really?
And I have to tell them my name's actually Jimmy. My dad put Jimmy. I'm a junior.
Okay. All right, so I'll be calling you Jimmy Jr. from now on. How about just Junior? JR.
Junior, look, call me
JR.
what you like as long as it's nothing weird. I'm cool.
All right, so tell us a little bit. I tried my best to highlight your career. I
did a great job.
I could
was
only
like,
read.
wow, who paid him
I
to
could
say
only
all
read
that
6 or
great
7
stuff?
paragraphs before I fell asleep last night. So why don't you tell us a little bit more if you'd like to fill some things in, and of course, kind of get us to current a little bit. Maybe even tell the guys how we met.
Nice. So we met at a family office, right? Was it one of those kind of synergies?
Family office.
You can
event,
explain those better. It was like one of those network meetings where all the great people get together, and I was blessed with being invited to one to listen to some stuff about the cannabis space. And I've being in music, we know a lot about cannabis, not necessarily in the space that you guys are representing today, but we're transcending there,
right,
at speed of light.
We'll call that the gray market in those days, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Many people that I know knew the gray market quite well as well. Yes.
So we were introduced that way, and I was just totally excited to see a bunch of great people get together with the intention of trying to sophisticate and structure this industry. You know what I mean? Because for so many years, it's been known in more of a negative light, and now to bring all the medicinal values and show that there's so much more to it was just exciting to be a part of that. So I was blessed with enjoying that, and then meeting you, and then hearing your voice. I heard you speak, and I was like, "Are we on radio right now?" You know what I mean? And
yeah, there you go. And again, guess what? Here we are today, right?
Exactly.
So just to give the appropriate guys some props, we met at the Dwayne Morris event. Dwayne Morris is now, I think, the largest cannabis law firm in the space right here in New York City. I think they have like in the range of 800 partners or something. And they brought a family office group together, about 40 of us. And the whole idea was to talk about these folks who are mostly kind of health-based investors, and they were thinking about putting a significant percentage of their holdings perhaps in the space. Some had already done it. Some were thinking about doing it. So the conversation was just among an awful lot of smart folks trying to figure out, what's the best way to do it.
Right.
So, and why don't you tell the audience who you were representing that day?
So, there's a young artist I am currently developing and representing named Sean Coe. His artist name is Esco, and he's incredible. He is a Korean-American R&B pop artist, and he's dope. We have a great EP that we're about to launch the top of the year, and he actually sang at that event. He did. He got up and sang. And
first time any of us ever saw anybody sing in any meeting ever in my entire career.
That's what we're trying to bring to those environments, a little bit of flavor.
Right, all 42 years, never saw that before, so everybody there thought it was fabulous. So, and by the way, he's an amazing singer, and perhaps we can talk about him a little bit more as we go.
Definitely.
All right, so talk a little bit about, obviously the music industry you've been in your entire life. How is the industry approaching the space? Give us a little perspective on, you kind of made kind of a humorous reference about, obviously, many folks, including myself, have participated in the space for many, many years. Quite frankly, at best a gray way, right? It was illegal, all right?
Definitely.
And now it's becoming legal, and some are simply participating in adult use states, and others are getting very involved. Maybe you can fill us in on how the music industry is approaching.
So from my perspective, I think that a lot of the artists are being brought in as brand ambassadors. Not a lot, but there are a few that are being brought in today as brand ambassadors. But it seems to be more on the THC side now. And I think that what what's happening with shows like what you're bringing to the table is that there's a higher level of education being brought, which will obviously expose them to the more purposeful side. And not that the THC side is not purposeful for many people. It is in many ways. But on the CBD side, on the cannabis side, utilizing it in whole, I feel like now a lot of the artists are learning about the space, and there's room for them to do brands that have CBD-based, lotions and whatever. I read something. I don't know how accurate this is because news is weird sometimes. And I don't know where I read it. I was looking through my phone and I saw something that said like John Legend allied with someone to do a CBD mattress. And again, I don't know how accurate that is, but just hearing anything like that was just mind-blowing to me, to be like, wow, John, super sophisticated artist. And, a lot of people will be like, he's jumping into this lane, and he is with purpose because he knows the value of it. You know what I mean? So we're seeing that a lot.
Right. So let me just kind of put some things in perspective. Yeah. So what we often talk about is the medicinal side of the space, which you refer to as the kind of the side of the space with purpose. Yeah. But both the THC side, which has historically been the psychoactive side, right, where you get high, right? Yes. And the CBD side, which has 0.3% or less THC in it, therefore you don't get high. Right. They both have amazing medicinal value, right?
Yes.
So anxiety, depression, PTSD, etc., is serviced by both the THC side and the CBD side. Right? So let's talk a little bit about, for example, let's take Whoopi as one of the folks that I'm going to say in your industry, or let's take Marley, or let's take Melissa Etheridge, or Snoop, or Willie Nelson, or any of these guys. Let's start out with Whoopi, because she has a brand, I believe it's called Maya, everyone. I might be getting that partially wrong, which was named after or is part of, I believe, something in the lane of breast cancer or PMS or something of that nature. So she had challenges with it, and I know I'm not telling the story very well, so I apologize if I'm getting the facts wrong, but she had challenges with it. She sampled the product. She realized it was adding great value, so much so, in fact, that she invented her own medicinal brand under the name Maya. And I, again, don't remember exactly what the intention was or what the disease state was, but it's completely medicinal. But let's talk a little bit about some of the other folks that are involved. Let's take Marley, for example. He's got you've been educating me on the Marley family, which you know quite well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Marleys and tell us about?
Well, we all know who the Marleys are. They're the great musical family of the descendants of the great Bob Marley, and I've been blessed to do music with Damien and work with them and stuff like that. But
just tell the audience, because I just learned. I've been following Marley music forever, right? And singing some of his songs, perhaps poorly, I might add. Right. But you told me he has 7. Did you say 7 siblings? How many Marleys are
I don't know how many Marleys are. There's a lot. We can Google to find it out. But he definitely has a few great people walking on the earth that come directly from him. And the one I know Julian Marley specifically was the one that started off in the space in Colorado. He had, I don't know if it's a dispensary or whatever he had, but I'm actually surprised that brand isn't a lot bigger.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't hear much about it the way I thought I would, you know what I mean? But it seems like the Gen Z, when they think about, the space of cannabis, they're not really thinking of Marley like we would. Now they're thinking more of the Wiz Khalifas and the Snoops and those people as the more, as a valid rep.
More like contemporary. So I also think there's another thing, and you and I have kicked this around before, especially when we're sitting in the family office meeting, and that is the notion that says, there's brand influencers and there's brands, right? So definitely. A brand needs a point of difference, needs to address a consumer need, right? Needs to be a superior product, needs to be tested, needs to be refined, etc. And then if somebody like the Marley family, as an example, wants to put their name not on the product, but rather endorsing the product, then it begins to make some sense, right? But if you call the product Marley, which, by the way, the Privateer guys, right, the original investment that had Peter Thiel's money in it, right, which, of course, made the space real to some extent when Peter Thiel puts money in, because he's the PayPal guy, right? And then they create Privateer, right, which is a Brandon Kennedy enterprise. And then all of that becomes Tilray, the first publicly traded company of all time.
Right.
And they then come out with the Marley brand. They literally just named it Marley.
Exactly.
Which is the reason why I would submit to you it hasn't done very well.
Right.
If they came out with a wonderful brand and talked about its points of difference, and behind that the Marley family perhaps said, and we believe in this brand, right, then it has much more relevance.
Makes sense.
So that's the difference between kind of, the marketing dynamics and just simply the kind of the more what I would call leveraging somebody's name and reputation. Right. And so when we work together, if we ever do, we're going to do both. Right. We're going to come up with superior brands and all the rest of it. And then perhaps you can add some value with some of the wonderful people and they can become influencers.
Definitely going to do that.
All right. So let's move along from there. But I can tell you right now that the other folks in the space that when I did my homework were, as I mentioned, Melissa Etheridge, Snoop is in it, of course, Willie Nelson. We probably all know he's in it, right?
Great Willie.
He could never miss it, right?
At all.
Jay-Z is in it. What do you know about Jay-Z's situation?
So that's what I want to talk about. I don't know how much Jay-Z is in it. I'm hearing now that there is this, so the brand is called Saucy.
Yes.
And I'm finding out that I'm not hearing that as Jay-Z's brand directly. I know that there was a brother named Alex as one of the heads who I got to meet the other night, and Jim Jones, who is a rapper, a very well-known hip-hop artist. He now launched a brand called Capo, which will be under Saucy. And again, those are both in the space of THC and the rec space. But there is not a confirmation that Jay-Z directly has put.
Right, which is probably good. I mean, that's my point earlier, which says that if Jay-Z wants to get behind a brand, he should become an influencer. It should not be named after him, and et cetera. But if people want to associate him with the brand, like LeBron, I mean, people know, and anybody you can think of, take Tiger, et cetera, Nike and all the rest of it. But the brand is Nike, endorsed by these folks, even all the way back to Michael Jordan.
Right. Well, Jordan named rank.
Right, he's the one exclusive guy the unique guy that they actually named a brand after him. Right?
And Kanye sneakers, well, they're not named Kanye, but they're named Yeezys, which we know that's his name, and they're doing well. Right. That's another, right. But I guess maybe the Yeezy.
All right. I think we're getting a little far afield here.
Yeah,
what do you think?
It's all good. Right, it's all good.
Right. So let's kind of reel it back in.
Yeah, go on.
By the way, those of you who can't see us, I'm using the fishing rod exercise.
There you go.
Which means we're reeling it back in.
Bring it back to shore.
All right. So let's talk about the kinds of people that are impacted by many of the artists that you work with, right? So think about Generation Z in the millennial world. Yep. These guys, are, well, let me just give you the scientific data of what kinds of things are attributes of theirs, right? They do things quickly. They want things to happen fast. Many of them believe they can be entrepreneurs and change the world. That's quite positive, changing the world, that is. But they kind of want things almost overnight. And they have expectations of achievement that are quite remarkable, many times because their mom and dad achieved, and they believe they can get it done at faster, quicker, and at a younger age.
Sounds like an anxious bunch.
There you go, my brother. So, okay, see, notice how I rolled right in there.
Right, definitely.
Right. Yeah. So, my question to you is, what have you seen among the community and the understanding of the performers who are obviously trying to help that community out on many levels, right? Not just creating music, but doing all kinds of inner city work with them and at-risk work and all the rest of it. What are you seeing in that space?
As far as in terms of what cannabis?
No, let's talk about the young people that are coming to your concerts all the time. Talk about their anxiety level. Do you know about it? Talk about kind of what they're doing to address it.
I'm definitely not aware to the detail of the level of anxiety that a lot of these Gen Z cats are dealing with. I know that there's definitely a lot to deal with the, with all the characteristics, just having to deal with the internet and dealing with Instagram and looking and seeing your friends just got accepted to Harvard and you can't even get out of high school, or all the different things that they're dealing with. I'm sure that will call for need. But where the artist space is concerned and where they're attempting to help, I don't think it's anything in regards to the cannabis. I think that we're in a very serious place of not understanding cannabis and not really getting the proper education. That's why I continue to highlight your show as an epicenter of knowledge for people who don't understand it, because this is a new industry, and the way the world works when it comes to global business, once we get our hands on something that we feel we can monetize, education becomes sort of to the side, and it's all about making the money off it. And that's what I see happening right now, is that there's millions, well, not maybe there's thousands of CBD brands that are launching every day. You listen to the radio, this CBD brand for this element, and I'm so pro and in support of it. But what I'm feeling now is that there's a lot of vetting and there's a need to figure out which ones really matter and have purpose, so that we can be helping people, because this could be to the demise of the space.
No, I understand.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
If that's not done properly.
And that's a very real issue, right?
Yeah.
So you have the combination of the kind of the psychoactive side of the space, which is what it's been known for
years.
virtually everybody's entire life since it only became legal in some states within the last roughly 10 years, right? And even then, there's only 11 adult use states. So the medicinal side of the space, which is legal in 33 states, is really not understood that well, is it? And especially depending on, I study it every day, so I'm around people who study it every day. But the average person, when you talk to the folks that are just thinking about the space, especially young people, right? They're being influenced by any number of things. And one of them is, when I'm 17 to 21 years old, I'm not necessarily thinking about the medicinal side of my life.
Right, not at all.
Now, having said that, what you'll find fascinating is the biggest consumers of CBD today is, in fact, 16 to 21-year-olds.
Which was crazy.
Right.
Right.
So they're consuming at the rate of about 40% more than anybody else in the marketplace. And
But is that the consumption of CBD,
yes, CBD.
Or not THC?
Not THC.
Wow.
And it's all about anxiety management. So college kids is a huge penetration of the space because, they're studying and they can't sleep at night, which is another thing that CBD can provide.
Definitely.
And they have to do, kind of the all-nighter thing. And I'm talking about the best schools in the country there where people are staying up all night long, which I did, right? And perhaps by the way, I didn't go to necessarily the best school in the country, but I'm very pleased that the University of Massachusetts is getting better every year,
right? Which
makes me look smarter every year, despite the fact that when I was going to school there, the requirements were quite lower.
Right.
But anyway, my point is that I've got a couple of nephews that are going to med school. The entire floor is using CBD, the whole floor. They're studying the space, they're studying the endocannabinoid system, and they understand the value of what it brings, right? So it's kind of fascinating in that regard, right? And it's completely appropriate because the age demographic, 16 to, say, 21, are the most anxious generation, perhaps, certainly in my lifetime. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but certainly that indeed is the case. I find it fascinating that some of the guys that you work with every day, the men and the women that you work with every day, some of them are clearly paying more attention, right? It's because on the sports side, you've got Tiki Barber, you got Ray Lewis, you got
that seems where it's where the most penetration has been made.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Even though there's still a lot of fight,
right,
on the internals, but the people to me that are spokesmaning the CBD the most have been the athletes. You know what I mean? Who are championing. I don't know if they're doing it because it's actually working or if, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because that's my only, again, plight with it is how do we know which one is the one?
Right. And that's a very important point. So, I mean, my best answer to that, if you're asking a serious question, my best answer to that is every good product has the actual test, the third-party test, either which you can get through a QR code by holding your phone up to the side of the bottle and you'll see the test because it'll take you to the website, or any one of us can do just a little bit of homework and get on a website. So Alchemist Kitchen, who, for example, is one of the brands that is advertising on this show quite regularly, right? They are completely tested by third-party folks, and they are completely what's called seed, from growth to sale, all the way through cultivation and extraction and turning it into medicine. They're evaluated in GMP quality facilities. That's good manufacturing facilities. So it's literally being run by like a pharma kind of process. To your point, there are 7,000 brands.
Right.
Maybe 20% are being run the way I just described.
I was about to say it,
the other 5,000 aren't, right?
Right.
But that happens in virtually every category, doesn't
it?
Right?
Facts.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember the bottled water category?
Definitely.
You were 3 years old when bottled water began.
Down. Yes.
Right, but people went from drinking tap water to drinking bottled water. So if you were in Texas and you had a well, sorry Texas, you could put a polyethylene bottle under the faucet, fill it up, and call it
Spring Creek
cozy water, right? And you would be fully legal.
You're right.
Now you might be killing a few people, but you'd be fully legal.
Right.
All right, I take that back. You would not be killing people. You might be somehow creating some health challenges. Let's go at it that way. All right.
Yep.
Oh, so let's talk about investing in your space, right? So many of let's kind of change the dynamic a little bit, and let's talk more about music and what you're doing, right? So many of my friends and many people listening to this show, because the show is primarily kind of a more businessy, infotainment kind of space with a lot of data and a lot of numbers and a lot of discussion around how to make money in the space and how to make money on the medicinal side of the space, and indeed how to kind of improve the lives of epileptics and autistics and other people without making money, just by being kind of philanthropic, for example.
Yep.
All right, but many of my friends love music. Right? We all love music. Everybody here loves music.
Should.
So if we looked around the room, look at the Flipsinator over there. He's got a whole career in music.
That's right.
Flips, you feeling lonely? We haven't really brought you in yet.
I've just been looking stuff up this whole time. Honestly.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Any word with what, a multiple syllable, or you're going with one syllable?
No. Well, Bob Marley had 9 kids.
Wow.
See, I knew that. I thought he had 7. There you go. All right. Let's hear it from me.
And Jay-Z
What'd you learn?
No,
Kaliva,
saucy.
yeah, as
Oh,
a
see, I've heard of
chief brand strategist.
Chief brand strategist for Kaliva. That's what I
Big.
thought too. All right, so there you go. So let's go back to music though, because that's kind of intriguing. So I've got folks who make, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but they make investments and study and work hard, etc., in certain fundamental things that run their life. So let's assume they're healthcare investors. Okay, but on the side, they have what I call hobby investments. We all have hobbies, right? So they might invest in a Broadway play. Right. They might invest in horses. Right. They might invest in wine. Right. Okay. They all want to invest in music. Right. And guess what? Every time any one of my friends or myself do any of those investments, it's the most expensive single seat in Broadway history. Because the show opens and the show closes within a week. Right. And it's a very expensive seat. Right. Or the horse, can't make it to the starting gate. So that's a very expensive investment.
No, it is.
The wine didn't get consumed. So it becomes literally a hobby. Right.
Wow.
So tell us a little bit about, you've been thinking some interesting thoughts about how to make money in music. Tell the group what you're thinking about.
So I've just been, I've personally firsthand experienced how hard it is to get investment for artists that are trying to start their, careers. And I've just been for the past 20 years noticing that music has help people, and we have the biggest artists. We can, from the Beyoncés to the Alicia Keys to the Rihannas, we know how much money these artists make. We know that there's labels that are making hundreds of millions, but it seems that whenever you have a new artist that's looking for security in funds and trying to get some assistance, people turn their heads and walk away. And 80% of it is because the perspective is that it is a hobby kind of investment versus something that has sophistication and structure, and you can get a return on your investment. So one of my purposes and goals is to secure that there's an equation created similar to sabermetrics.
Sabermetrics, yeah, there you go. Billy Ball.
There you go. Right. So, which will help to gauge and create an algorithm of success in the industry. I think the place to start is with the ownership of masters and doing it within publishing and attaching it to streaming.
Right. Tell the audience what a master is.
So the master is the actual ownership of a song, right? And it could be of a song of any form of intellectual property, like you owning the masters of this, say, show, or the masters of, a coding that you create for a website. You know what I mean? So any form of intellectual property, they didn't always use the term master across board, but owning the original version and creation of something would be the master. So in music, when you write a song.
That, but tell the group about Pungbo. Explain what you're thinking about.
So the concept is to build a collective where we put together 10 to 50 songs, right? We put a value on each song. We bring investors in to invest in that collection of songs. And then we go and we basically promote and market that collection of songs specifically in the streaming space.
Yeah, I understand.
Focusing on streaming.
So here's the bottom line, if I can just kind of summarize.
Yeah,
so what you're thinking about is, how much does it cost? You mentioned once $50,000 to $100,000 to promote a song, right?
Yeah, $100,000 is what $100,000 is what I'm looking at as the number to say the value of a song.
Okay, so if you went out and Flips over there and put in $50,000 and the man with the great hat behind me, $50,000, and Devin over there, $50,000, and the gentleman with the perfect beard, $50,000. Make sure you get these eyes on the show, please. Right, there's $200,000. Yep. So they go into the fund. So you then go ahead, write the song, you produce the song, you promote the song, and the expectation is, from your experience, that rate of return is a 20% rate of return.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
All right, so that's what I wanted you to chat about, because I thought it was quite brilliant, actually. It kind of takes the risk out of the investment.
Exactly.
And since you've written song after song that have been up for Grammys, for example, and other wonderful songs you've written, you pretty much know what the economics of the space are.
Definitely.
And so then you're kind of creating a musical fund that has value added for investors who might want to enjoy. Call it a hobby investment. I don't think you probably care, do you?
No, I mean, I don't care, but I think that, a part of that phrase assist in taking away from the seriousness of it.
So my reaction to that is, when the Jimmy Cozier fund goes out, called Pungbo, if that's the name of what you're going to do, right? And you start hitting the ball over the wall, call that a 20% rate of return in music, it won't be considered a hobby anymore.
At all.
No,
and we'll
not
be able
at all.
to change that right here on the show.
There you go. Apparently we just did.
Exactly.
All right, so here you are. Every time I turn around and say, Jimmy, what are you doing tonight? You're telling me, you're doing the most amazing things. I mean, here we are at iHeart, the world of music, right?
Yes.
I'm looking at the walls and I see everybody, Ariana Grande and Jennifer Lopez. I mean, and everybody, right? I hope I get these names right as I go here, because I'm kind of new in this area.
Now you nailed it.
Okay, I nailed it. So far, so good. Okay, very good. Okay, so many people that I know have children
Right.
or they themselves
Right.
that would love to engage in the world of music, right?
Yes, indeed.
Get me into these experiences. I can't tell you how many people that I know just to go to Fashion Week. They'll do anything to
Right.
go to, the Mercedes Fashion Week show
Nice.
and watch all these wonderful things happening because it's an experience, right?
You need to join up with me.
All right. So what are you doing to try to exploit that, or are you?
So not necessarily exploiting as much the concert side, but I think what I'm doing, I'm building a community of creative people and people that all share the same vision in one, solving problems, and especially in this music industry, referring to the equation I spoke about. But the perks of being in the community is that we have a lot of relationships and we have a lot of events and we go a lot of places and we do things with purpose. And the goal is to introduce the culture to the corporate America, to the global, business world, and let them understand that for years we've been using culture, the music culture, sports culture, to secure a lot of success with brands. And I just think that it's a way that we can come together to monetize and maximize on the integration of
Right. So there's
music
really two
today.
things here, right? So I'm trying to get you to talk about two things.
Yes.
One thing is using your folks as influencers, the
Yes,
industry.
indeed.
When I say your folks, of course, I mean musicians.
Yeah, musicians
right?
and artists, exactly.
Right.
Entertainers.
So, and they become influencers. That's a known commodity.
It happens. Yes.
I'm talking about the idea that Jeff Hill, who goes home tonight and is bored and would love to hang out with some of the folks that on a regular and consistent basis.
Right.
Or some folks that are listening and they want to go to a concert and they, I don't care if it's the Doobie Brothers, which,
Right.
yes, very much. That
We
gives you a
love the
sense from
Doobie
my
Brothers.
age, right? Or Ariana Grande, who's a
Right.
person I don't even know that music, or Mary J. Blige, who you've
Mary,
helped me
great Mary.
figure out her music because you've
Right.
been writing with her for 20 years. All right. So in my homework sessions, I listened to a lot of her music, and it was great. Okay,
Right.
so aren't you doing something that's going to allow me to pay like a kind of a certain amount of money to engage in these experiences?
So I want to be clear. So, I have a site called Cosnection.com, which is basically a members-only kind of thing where I'm bringing in certain kind of people. And when I say that, I hate to say certain kind. It sounds so weird.
No, you
but
mean people with money, dude. I understand that.
people with money, but people also that have great resources and are like-minded and trying to get someplace. So I'm trying to connect the money with the creative. You know what I
Right,
mean?
of course.
You see what I'm saying? So that's really the purpose.
And you'd like to create a community of people that love music.
Exactly.
That have a little bit of money.
Yep.
That you can cross-pollinate. That can see young
There you go.
artists. That can
And
get experiences.
there you go.
So people with money want experiences.
Yep.
People in the industry want to take advantage of their influencer-ness,
That's
right?
That's right.
And provide those experiences.
Yes, they
That's
do.
Mary J., right?
Exactly.
But on the other hand, you've got all these young artists.
That's right.
And as more people that have a little bit of money begin to realize the value of investing in music, then the world of music can change.
Opens up
young
in a whole
artists
different
can
way.
be exposed to
That's
wonderful
right.
things. And the more experienced artists can kind of become more connected,
That's right.
let's say, to some of the folks that have a little bit of money because now they're intrigued, the experience is exciting, the money opportunity is real, and
we can
everybody
gauge,
wins.
and we can probably gauge success a little better because
Right.
we've been able to do that, to date.
All right, so the Flipsinator here is hooking
Yes,
me out here.
that's right.
I'm watching
Come
him.
on,
He's
we got
jumping up
things
and
to do.
down. Right, we got another
Jeff
whole
Hill's
show
a
to do.
busy man.
All right, so listen, James,
Yes,
this
sir.
has been great. I want
Yes,
to
it
thank
has.
you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we'll get you back. Because what
Yes.
I'm trying to do is kind of get the show to reach out to different spaces. The sports industry. Last week we had AJ Vanderchuck on from Vayner Sports, an individual I know you know well.
Yes.
Right?
The
And he
great
talked
AJ.
about 25 NFL players. And of course, we know Ray's in it, and Tiki's in it, and all these other guys. And so reaching out to different industries, different verticals, right, that can kind of get more folks that understand the medicinal value of cannabis, get them into the space.
That's right.
And in so doing, get them into music and get
That's
them into
right.
sports and
That's
the things
right.
they already love. All right. Well, thanks you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
Great to have you
for
on the
real.
show.
It's a
Appreciate
pleasure,
it.
brother.
All right. When we come back, we'll move to the fourth segment of the show, your messages.
The Alchemist Kitchen celebrates the power of plants. They're the leading destination in New York City for CBD. Their organic CBD hemp flower is grown in upstate New York. So come on down and talk to one of their herbalists to learn about how CBD may relieve stress, anxiety, and pain. Located at 21 East 1st Street, right near the Bowery. Mention NYCBD for special savings for your first purchase. See you soon. Or visit them online at thealchemistkitchen.com. That's the ALCHEMIST kitchen.com.
Welcome back to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill right here on 710 WOR Radio. let's move on to the fourth segment of our show, responding to your messages. These are the best messages we picked. That would be we as defined as Flips and I. How'd we do this week, Flips?
We're getting them in this week, so we should be good.
Okay. All right, our first letter comes from Sal in South Dakota. I can't believe we're getting listened to in South Dakota, but here we go. My son suffers from brutal depression. I found it fascinating that 3 weeks ago, David Champion talked about the progress he has been seeking and studying in depression patients that are taking psychedelic drugs like psilocybin. Since the show, I have done a lot of research, and the data is very promising. How can I get my son involved? Well, Sal, unfortunately, the only state that has decriminalized psilocybin for study is Colorado, but there are also many studies being initiated to assess psychedelics on many disease states like your son's depression, along with anxiety, autism, and PTSD. It is, however, legal in multiple countries around the world, so the only way to get your son involved in a test case is to go to Colorado and or go internationally. All right, let's move to our next DM, which comes from an unhappy father named Joe, who has 2 teenage high school football players. He says, I can't tell you how disappointed I am in the people like Ray Lewis, Tiki Barber, and the retired Patriot tight end Rob Gronkowski. How can you be disappointed in Gronkowski, for goodness sakes? He's the funniest guy around. All these men have endorsed pot companies. I think it's ruining our youth's health for years to come. All right, Joe, you could have added Bubba Watson, Michael J. Fox, who takes it for Parkinson's, Morgan Freeman, who takes it for fibromyalgia. You could have added Harvard or MIT or Cornell and at least 15 other universities, all who believe there's medicinal value in the space. But okay, you can hold it against Ray and Tiki and Gronk if you want, but I would suggest you might want to think about it a little differently. The evidence is getting very clear. How clear? Well, crystal. Thank you, Tom Cruise, and a few good men. Anybody over 50 years old, you understand that quote. Cannabis is increasingly understood by many leaders in all fields to have a positive impact on many challenging disease states in the U.S. and around the world. So, Joe, it's going to only get worse for you from here, but I would submit better for everyone else, including your sons. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's show and our guest, Jimmy Cozier. We'll be back next week for another 60 minutes of the critical issues facing cannabis and CBD. The medical issues, the political implications, the financial implications, and apparently now the music and sports implications. Remember, knowledge is built brick by brick. Today you get my 23rd brick. I know that's hard to believe. Until next week, this is NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill.